Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational digital magazine for women since 2006. If you follow Aspire or any of my media brands, you know I am so passionate about bringing you conversations and content that inspire you to live your best life, that inspire you to live from the inside out. Follow your truth, or like I like to say, follow your soul whispers. So I have a question for you guys. Are you ready to become the chief soul officer of your life? You know, you may be feeling the rally cry to live and lead more courageously, authentically, and purposefully, as many are, including myself. Well, today's guest, Shelley Paxton, author of Soulbatical, a corporate rebel's guide to finding your best life. She'll share how to take a soulbatical, what it means to be the chief soul officer of your own life and career, and so much more. Shelley is an author, international speaker, and transformational coach that has been featured on Fast Company, Forbes, CBS, and Thrive Global. She can best be summed up as a burnout fighter and a fire reigniter who is rebelling for rewriting the traditional script of success, starting with her new book, Soulbatical, a corporate rebel's guide to finding your best life. Shelley spent 26 years as a highly regarded marketing and advertising executive, stewarding some of the world's most iconic brands, including Harley, Visa, McDonald's, and AOL. And she walked away from it all to launch her own company, Soulbatical, and become the chief soul officer of her own life. Shelley, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Linda. This conversation was meant to happen. Soul whispers. When you said that, I got chills.
Oh, I tell my clients, follow the soul whispers, not the voice of that negative Nelly in your head. So, as I shared, Shelley and I were talking before we came on the air, and I'm like, oh my God, I had to have you on the show. Your whole mission, your personal journey, the whole essence and feel of Soulbatical and being the chief soul officer of your own life. I'm like, that is the message that I want to share with my audience. So Shelley, thank you for being here today.
I'm so excited. Thank you for inviting me and just allowing me to bask in this time together. It's my favorite thing to talk about, and we've all got to band together on this. We need to convert more people to rebelling for their own soul and their own truth.
So true. And you've had one hell of a journey, my friend. I mean, here you are, 26 years as a highly regarded marketing and advertising exec with Harley Davidson, as well as many others. What was your personal inner experience that led you to finally walk away from it all to launch and lead from the inside out with Soulbatical?
Yeah, such a powerful question. And I love how you talk about inside out. We have a lot of shared language, which is really beautiful. And that's exactly what it was, Linda. It was, for me, I ticked all the boxes of traditional success. If you look at me from the outside, it's like chief marketing officer of Harley Davidson. Who leaves that job? It's easy to put somebody on a pedestal and say they have the perfect life. They have the coolest, sexiest job. They have all of these things. But what you're not seeing is the inside. And what I was ignoring at the time was that, everything was kind of shiny on the outside, but a hot mess on the inside. And I was ignoring that I was feeling like I was dying a little bit on the inside, and I was feeling an emptiness, a lack of fulfillment. And because I was kind of seeking all kinds of external validation, I was very attached to my title and the great money I was making and the sexy brand I was serving and all of those things. I was numbing myself, pushing down, trying to quiet or shush that soul whisper, to use your words. And what ended up happening, because guys, we all know this, right? We can try to ignore it. It's first going to whisper, and then it's going to shout, and then it's going to take a 2x4 to our solar plexus, and we're going to have to pay attention. And that's what happened to me. There's a chapter in my book that says getting woke literally. It's the first chapter of my book. And what ended up happening is, the universe was coming into my subconscious and ripping me out of my sleep and helping me to see what I was pretending not to see. And that's that, I could describe the nightmare that I was having. I was, in essence, being led. I get emotional every time I talk about this. I was being led on this journey into this series of dark rooms. And when I get to the final dark room, that's very unfamiliar, and it's barren, and it's chilly, and it's windowless, and there's no life and no decor except for I can see the outline of a small utility closet on the opposite side of the room with like a flickering old light in it. And I'm pulled across the room, literally forced to open this door. And when I open it, I see my dog, my little pug, who had passed away about 6 years prior to me having this nightmare and me being at Harley. And he's still alive. He's neglected. He's malnourished. He's dying. He's whimpering on the floor. And I wake up.
Oh my God.
And I mean, I know it gives me chills every time I tell that story, and I have tears in my eyes because the emotion that it conjures. And that got me. So that was happening the entire final year that I was at Harley. And a few months into it, I was losing sleep. I was losing my mind. I was trying to understand what's going on here. I ended up going to a doctor who got me started on meditation. It was the beginning of my journey with meditation and understanding the profound impact it can have on our lives. And I realized that in seeing Mocha, my dog, I was actually seeing my soul.
And the pain that it was in.
My soul is actually what I was disconnected from. My soul was malnourished and longing for attention and love, and simply for me to listen. And when I realized that was the mic drop moment for me, where I thought, what is my truth? Do I even know my truth anymore? It's been so long since I listened to that little voice or those soul whispers. And I started to get really clear that if I really wanted to feel full on the inside, to be successful, Full, fulfilled in my life, I was going to have to start living from the inside out. And I was going to start having to listen very, very deeply and get reconnected to my soul. And that was the beginning of my journey to do the scariest thing I could imagine, which was to take one step outside of all I had ever known in my adult life, which was my career.
And how long ago was that moment?
So the moment I left, I walked out the door. So that process was kind of the final year. It took me about 6 months to pave the way for me to leave, both in my inner work and also in wanting to leave Harley and the awesome people at Harley in a really good place. That was September of 2016. We're coming up on the 4-year anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. And honestly, Linda, I walked out saying, I'm going to give myself a year. I called it investing in the possibility of my future self.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And this idea that, well, worst case, right? Fear was running rampant, but I said, I owe this. Life is precious. I owe this to myself. And what's the worst possible thing that could happen? I go back into the corporate world in a year. But who knows what I'm going to learn? And I'm going to give myself this space and honor my soul in this journey and see what comes up. And I just put one foot in front of the other. And had you asked me at that point in time, had you told me, well, you will have written a book about this journey, you will be running a business called Soulbatical, these were just words I made up one morning because I felt pressure to describe to people that the journey I was going on was not a vacation, and it was not a traditional sabbatical, that it was more profound than that. And yet I didn't know what to expect. So I created all these handles and this idea. And if you told me 4 years ago, 4 years later, I'd be living my best life as an entrepreneur and a published author and wake up every day like energized like a lighthouse, man, I'm not sure if I would have believed you, but I'm glad I took the chance.
Oh, and I got to say, your story is so inspirational that I know there are so many women listening right now who are feeling this inner call, as you described it, that desire to rebel, and they're not sure if they have the courage to do it. And I've lived that, so I completely understand and get it. And I love sharing stories like yours, Shelley, because if there's a woman sitting there right now going, hell yeah, that's me, that's how I'm feeling. If she can do it, then I have to allow myself to have the courage to do it.
Hell yes.
I just believe that how the depth of what you just shared is going to have a ripple effect on women who are feeling like a stranger in their own life. That's how I usually describe it. You wake up one day and go, whose life is this? Did I choose this? It's almost like you described, you wake up.
Yeah, it's a powerful way. It's a powerful way to think about it. And that was one of my realizations. And I'm guessing that a lot of your listeners can relate to this too. Like, I realized that I was living my dad's dream. I was following in my dad's footsteps. And it's really a scary question to ask yourself, what is my dream? What path what trail do I want to blaze? One of my favorite coaching questions is, what would change in your life right now if you were living 100% true to you?
Ooh, that's a powerful question. In your life right now, if you were living 100% true to you.
Yeah. And to be honest, I play with that question for myself, right? This is a daily practice. It's constant work to continue to grow and evolve and live every day into my own truth and purpose. And so I find that a powerful one. Sit with that one for anyone who's listening and just think. And guess what? You don't have to leave your job. You only have to put one foot in front of the other. It's funny, when I started my Soulbatical journey, so those first steps outside of the doors of Harley Davidson into this unknown abyss, kind of into my own heroine's journey, I had absolutely no idea where I was going or what this journey really meant. And one thing I'm so clear on now is that Soulbatical doesn't mean leaving your job. It's about finding yourself.
That's why I think the word speaks to me so strongly. I've always used the hashtag soulcation. And it's something you said a moment ago. We don't want a vacation from that. So your phrase that you created, Soulbatical, just really resonates with me, because really it's about going inward. It's not taking a vacation from your life. It's actually diving deeper to get closer and pull your life towards you.
That's exactly right. It's really getting in touch with our truth, our essence, our values, right? Our commitments to ourselves. So that's the inner work. And then aligning our lives to that. And that's the living part. That's as you said in the intro, living more authentically, courageously, and purposefully. That's really what Soulbatical means. And for the people I coach and work with, it's one step at a time. So the beauty is we all have access to Soulbatical. There are as many flavors of Soulbatical as there are humans on this planet. And it's one of the reasons I love it. And honestly, this is all in hindsight. I didn't know any of this when I was taking that first step out the door. And now I find it so powerful. And I really encourage everyone to sit still and listen deeply to that little voice inside and start to get crystal clear on what you are rebelling for. This is kind of, I'm a rebel soul. There's a reason why the subtitle of my book is A Corporate Rebel's Guide to Finding Your Best Life. One of my awakenings actually in all of this, and certainly in writing the book, is realizing that I spent the majority of my life rebelling against everything. And rebelling against is exhausting, and it's also on someone else's terms. And what I realized, and I'm so energized by, is when you rebel for, it's about possibility and it's on your terms. And so getting really clear on rebelling for who you are, that's your truth, your authenticity, what you want, that's the courage to create and live into your truth, and rebelling for the impact you want to have in the world. And that's your purpose, your mission. And Linda, you said something earlier, you were talking about the ripple effect. And one of the things that I talk about, have really locked into lately, is this idea of ROI no longer standing for return on investment, but instead ripples of impact.
Ooh, I'm writing that one down. Ripples of impact.
And imagine, right? It's really powerful. And I can't take credit for the phrase. Actually, somebody served it up to me. I gave a talk to about 150 coaches, consultants, and corporate leaders. I don't know, not even that long ago, a month or so ago. And a woman said, Shelley, you've redefined ROI and you didn't even realize it. And she served that back to me. And literally I had tears in my eyes, chills from head to toe. And I've really been leaning into this idea and sharing that language, because that's what we're doing. And the more of us, I say I'm on a mission to liberate 1 billion souls. I can't do that on my own. I want to do that together. And each one of us who start to live our truth is one of those ripples of impact. And we start to inspire others and impact others. And it becomes a wave and a movement, and it radically changes for the better the world we live in.
So powerful. And we're going to talk more about this when we come back from our break. And it's everything you're speaking. It's like we're talking the same soul language. And I believe, as you just shared, we need to do it together. That's why I use my media platforms, as we discussed off air, to highlight amazing women that are doing visionary work in the world, that are creating a ripple, right? So that we can be the change, be the light that the world needs. So we'll be right back. I am with Shelly Paxton. You can learn more at Soulbatical.com. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine. Inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy. With me today is Shelly Paxton, author of Soulbatical, a corporate rebel's guide to finding your best life. So as you just shared about, especially about the ripples of impact and how when we all come together to live and commit to living authentically, I think that's when the transformation takes place. I had mine, I had a couple awakenings, but a powerful one for me was in my 40s. I'm 58 now. I think it happens more often than we know, but the big one like yours, I can remember saying, is this it? This is the life? You know, that I think we were programmed to live. And I've always been a creative rebel, a creative visionary, someone that has to follow my own path. Consider it the black sheep of the family, Shelley, you know, because they had a model that you were to follow and I never followed it.
Oh, you and I are definitely cut from the same cloth.
Oh my God. And the funny part is, you know, I come from an old school family. You get the job at 18 years old, Linda, you stay there until you die. Benefits, benefits, benefits. That's what you need. And I was the rebel that took off at 16, 17, 18 to go live on the beach. And I've been an entrepreneur for 28 years. And in their eyes, that's a rebel.
Yeah.
But guess what? Life's come full circle. Because, you know, I think I was near my 50th birthday, a couple of family members, you know, usually you celebrate those big milestones. And someone said, you know, you've never been happier and more fulfilled in your life. And I wish I had that, because they followed the other path. The path that was not theirs. The path that was written, and they're so afraid to take one step off it. And Shelley, how many clients have you found? They see this path that was either given to them or programmed into them, and they're petrified to put their one foot off the path onto the grass.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is scary, right? It is scary, but growth doesn't come without courage, and fulfillment, which is the reward, doesn't come without risk. I always say, and this might even be a Jack Canfield phrase, but on the other side of fear is everything you want.
I got to tell you, I found it to be true. And I do want to say to everyone listening, and I'm sure Shelley can add to this, fear is normal. It's a part of the journey. But a few years ago, I wrote a quote when I was deep in the midst of another transformation. And I work with a lot of spiritual female entrepreneurs, and they struggle with this, Shelley. And I wrote, if success comes when you're hiding behind a mask, then it's truly not success, is it? Because if you're not living your life as the authentic, full-powered, embodied you, and you create success, is it really success if you're not living your truth?
Yeah, I love those words. I call that being success empty. So, you know, for me, you know, one of Soulbatical really is about rewriting the script of success, because, you know, I grew up and thought for the longest time that success and fulfillment were mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And what you, right? A lot of people do. And it's like, oh, is this the price you pay? You said this earlier, like, is this all there is? Is this the price I pay? Is anybody else having fun? You know, living this life? Because I was just feeling so empty. So success empty, I think, is a real thing. And living your truth is so powerful, and it opens doors and portals that I didn't even know existed before. I mean, my love note to the world and to everybody listening to this right now is authenticity is the truest form of rebellion.
I like that. Authenticity is, want to say it one more time, Shelley.
Authenticity is the truest form of rebellion.
It just resonates so strongly with me because it took me a long time, especially in my 20s and 30s when I started the spiritual path. I could tell I had layers of thoughts, processes, beliefs, etc., that weren't mine. It felt like peeling an onion. And every time you think you're done, you get a surprise and find out you're not. I'm sure you discovered that too.
100%. Yeah. Well, yeah. So just on that note and moving the story forward. So, I boldly walk out the door of Harley Davidson, and then I have one of those like, oh shit.
What did I do?
What have I done? And I vacillated, right? I would have days where I woke up and I'm like, I did it. I'm so proud of myself. I'm on this journey. And then I would have days where I was like curled up in the fetal position because, your phone stops ringing at some point. And, a lot of people in your network, like, my value was that I was attached to this really sexy, iconic brand. And, my challenge to myself, and this is still, I think, one of the most powerful questions on my journey, speaks to me because I'm a marketer. I finally woke up one day and said, Shelley, what if Shelly Paxton is the most iconic brand you could ever represent?
Wow. I love this.
And that was sort of my pull myself up by the bootstraps question, because it's the truth. Right? It's the same for you, Linda. It's the same for each and every beautiful human who is listening to this conversation right now. We are the most iconic brand that we can ever represent.
So true. We are. And when we own our full power and step out as that brand, look at how much change we can make in the world.
Totally. And we're unstoppable, really. And part of understanding any brand is understanding the truth and the essence and the core of that brand. And that's the inner work. So that's what we have to do for ourselves as well. We can't step into our bigness and our fullness as our true selves until we really understand our true selves. So for me, that early part of the journey, what I realized was I was addicted to busyness. And I'm guessing that this will resonate with
I had a big smile on my face going, oh, I'm sure everybody's going, like, is she talking to me?
Yeah, exactly. And I was totally addicted to busyness. So I was starting to fill my days all over again. And I was like, oh, right. So I was pointing the finger, blaming the corporate world this entire time. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So some of it was, just the culture and the expectations, and some of it was me. And I was doing it. So what the beginning of the transformation for me was, one, realizing this obsession with busyness and that I had always worn it as a badge of honor. And I started learning these lessons. I went to France as one of the first places I went on my journey, because at that time I thought, well, if I travel, right, I'm going to figure this all out. And it was before I love to travel. It's part of my essence. And at the same time, I'm realizing, oh, the power of place can feed your soul, but it can't fix it. That's our work to do. And yet, it really taught me some powerful lessons. And the first one was slow down, sit still, and listen. And it was my entree into understanding this idea of being versus doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have to-be lists, and I teach my clients that instead of to-do lists.
I love it.
Where are you? What are you creating? You're not just a machine. And a to-do list gives you that kind of that vibe. And
Completely.
I said, I know you have to have tasks, but you have to be first. And so for you, was it a struggle to go from the pace you had for, over 2 decades to really almost reprogramming how you navigated life, right? To slow it down.
Yeah, it was an entire, yes, it was definitely challenging for me. It's a rewiring, and it's a daily practice. I mean, I catch myself some days where I'm like, oh, Shelley, you're caught up in the busy. You're on the hamster wheel. Stop. What do you need to do for yourself? What does it look like to get back into your human being versus human doing, right? And I have to remind myself of that too. And once I got a taste of what started coming through when I did slow down and getting reconnected to that voice and savoring the pleasures of life, savoring a slow walk, savoring the pace of life in France, where I first started to learn this lesson, not really wanting to have any sort of, checkbox to-do list, but simply wanting to be. There were afternoons I would sit in a garden, like just sit and listen to my thoughts and ask myself questions and see what's coming up. And yeah, I just started playing around with what does that rewiring look like. And on the flight home from France back to Chicago, I made a commitment to myself that I would never, ever utter the two words that I had said probably more often than anything else in my life. And that was crazy busy.
Oh, yeah. Becomes our language, doesn't it?
Oh, the language is so powerful. I mean, all language matters. And that crazy busy language, I used to, again, the badge of honor thing, I used to be like, oh, I'm crazy busy. I'm crazy busy. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's just disturbing that I lived like that and I celebrated that for so long. I'm not going to utter those words. And if I do, I'm going to ask myself what I'm doing wrong and how I can be.
So beautiful. Like it's like a sacred dialogue with your soul.
Yeah, it is. It is. And these are things that we have to remind ourselves of. And, let's be honest, I have to take doses of my own medicine on a regular basis because I'm human.
Right? I believe we're here to teach what we most have to learn, right? And
amen.
Your journey and are now teaching others from this, empowered place. So you shared that the first step is to slow down and get reconnected to ourselves and what matters most to us. Before our next break, share a couple ways that you started to do that and incorporate it. Like, was it journaling? Was it restructuring your day? So that our listeners can say, well, I don't know where to begin. How do I slow down and reconnect with myself?
Yeah, there are so many. Here's the three off the top of my head. So one was getting deeper into meditation. That was an important piece of it for me. And honestly, I would say to anybody, just start with 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long time, but we all deserve the gift of 10 minutes of quiet, or you could do guided meditation. But I found that because of the way it had served me so powerfully in understanding the nightmare, I wanted to get deeper into that listening and that understanding. The second piece for me is also I love to be out in nature. I carve out times just for silence. Sometimes it's silent walking. Sometimes it's just putting my feet in the soil to feel connected, to Mother Earth. And I find that that's a lot of my creativity comes from being out in nature and just sitting still. And again, listening. So stillness, I carve out time in my days. I did it then and I still do it today. I carve out time for stillness, even if it's a half an hour. Or quiet, I should say, because sometimes I do it walking. This morning I went on a 5-mile walk and I had earbuds in my ears, but I didn't listen to anything. I just walked in my own silence and I observed. And yes, journaling has played, I have an on and off relationship with journaling.
Me too.
Yeah. So if I'm completely honest, but definitely getting thoughts out of my head and onto paper. And I find that that's really connected to me meditating and listening more. My stillness and my meditation were also then percolating so many things. I'm like, wow, where did this come from? It was like tapping into a geyser and then getting that out of me. And a lot of that became sort of the the foundational building blocks for the book I ended up writing. I didn't even know half that stuff was inside of me.
Don't you love how that happened? It's just you kept taking, and I want the listeners to hear it. It's from the moment you had that dream, you just kept taking baby steps. And it doesn't mean fear wasn't there, but you're like, I'm just going to take the next step. I'm just going to take the next step. And look what unfolded.
Yeah.
And that's the message this show is about, is that when we can slow down and quiet and just listen to our truth, the steps will reveal themselves. But you have to get off the damn hamster wheel and stop going so fast that you can't even hear yourself thinking.
Yeah. And remember this, I love to say every badass accomplishment is a series of tiny steps. That's it. We forget that. And we look at what other people have accomplished and we compare ourselves to them. We're comparing our insides to their outsides, and we forget they started by taking tiny steps as well. And that's all we do every day. And it makes it a lot easier.
It's so true. And like you said a moment ago, that sometimes we look at other people, and I've had people say to me, oh my God, look at you have all these brands, and it must have came easy to you to start a business. And I go, honey, I was a welfare mom, no training, no anything. I had a vision, but that was my first business in the 90s. This business, Aspire, I didn't know, Shelley, how to publish a mag. Didn't even know you need a graphic designer to do it. I just said, I have a vision to start a mag that speaks to women, not at women, right? And baby steps. I learned it, and next thing you know, we're a global publication. But there was no plan to be where I am today. I just kept following my heart, my soul, and those soul whispers. And that's what I want to encourage everyone to do, because we're always being led. But if you're smothering the voice of your truth, your authentic self, that's when I feel like we suffer.
Oh, yeah. And we cannot avoid pain, but we can absolutely not suffer. We can choose to not suffer.
It's so true. I'll be honest, and I've shared this on many other episodes, I was always the slow learner, right? So for decades, I wouldn't hear the words I use now, which is soul whisper. I would ignore them. I'd swat them away like, hey, I'm too busy. And I always said, the divine will first blow in your ear. Then it will tap you on the ear or flick you like that your brother used to do when you were little. And if you continue to ignore, you will receive the cosmic 2x4 and be brought to your knees. And I always waited for the darn cosmic 2x4 for many decades of my life. And finally I said, well, why don't you start listening to the soul whispers and prevent the cosmic 2x4s? I may be using different language than you, Shelley, but have you found that to be true too?
Oh yeah. So it's funny what you said is a very similar version to what I said when I was describing my nightmare. It absolutely is. It's the whisper, then the shout, and then it's the 2x4. And it's going to happen to all of us. And so it's like, yeah, why do we wait for that moment? I think so many life transitions, so many awakenings happen after a tragedy.
Yes, I agree.
And the tragedy shines a bright, white hot spotlight on what we already knew. And yet, so right, so true. And what's really interesting is that in line with this, on my journey, I got 8 months into this initial Soulbatical journey, and I was starting to, my purpose was starting to crystallize, because so many people were asking me about this journey and becoming very intrigued about how I was living my life, and, how I was, that I wasn't interested in getting back into corporate. And I was like, maybe this is my mission. Maybe me doing this Soulbatical thing is something. Maybe this is the trail I meant to blaze for others. And just as that was starting to crystallize, my dad had a stroke. Oh. And I mean, I tell you, these are, reminders, right? We're lucky he's still with us today. He ended up having 2 strokes back to back. which at the age of 71, he had to do everything from he's still learning to write again. He still doesn't yet know how to read again. This is 3 years later now. It's just the 3-year anniversary of his first stroke. He had to learn to walk again. He had to learn how to eat and swallow and talk and all the things. And, we're lucky. I mean, to me, he is just the model for resiliency, positivity, courage. And, we had this really striking conversation one day that as he was finding his words and he was telling me a story, he was holding my hand. We got them to their house in Naples, Florida. And my dad had always lived his career was his life. He was a great family man too, but his career was it. And he was the CEO and chairman of a lot of different big companies that people would know, and very successful, let's put it that way. And so now he's, basically on his knees trying to learn how to live and talk and walk and do all these things all over again. He tells me a story that after the second stroke, he had decided it was time to go, that he had done everything he had been on this planet, on this earth to do. And he was ready to let go. And he knew his family was in a good place and would be well taken care of. And it was his time. And then he describes to me how a few days later, and this is a guy who's like barely grasping language and suddenly is lucid, telling me this story, and he has tears streaming down his face. He's holding my hand. I am crumbling with emotion. And he says, then a few days later, I realized, no, I'm not ready to go. I have different work to do this time. And I just lost it. And I was like, that's my message too. I have different work to do this time. And I looked at my dad and I, through like barely getting words out of my mouth, I said, oh my God, I get it now. You and I have been living business, but it's time for us to shift to the business of living.
Whoa, what a powerful transformational experience for both of you. But if you bring in the message forward, and we're going to go to break, our final break before our last small segment. And I want to, I'm just tapping into the energy of that story because it was so powerful, the lessons there and the insights. We're going to go to break, and we come back, Shelley. Let's talk about the book in the final minutes. Tell them what to expect, share whatever you'd like, because I want to get this book in their hands, my friend. And we'll be back in a moment. I'm with Shelley Paxton of Soulbatical.com, and we'll be right back.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Are you being called to step into your truth and embrace your divinity? Are you ready to align your heart and soul, live an authentic life, and become a divine magnet for love and abundance? It's time to listen to your inner wisdom and clear the blocks holding you back from your best life. Leading intuitive prosperity coach, Akashic Records practitioner, and evidential medium Jamie Hearn of Liveyourdivinity.com empowers and supports spiritual women like you to align your inner and outer worlds, embrace your soul's truth, and live your divinity. Through her intuitive gifts, grounded wisdom, and empowered coaching, Jamie guides women back into sacred alignment with their truth. Visit Liveyourdivinity.com to learn more about Jamie's empowering programs and to schedule an Akashic record reading.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and I'm excited to continue the conversation with Shelly Paxton, author of Soulbatical. So, Shelly, right before the break, you shared that beautiful story about your dad and the insights that you both had about a new vision, a new mission about the business of living. And that just I was vibrating because it's such a powerful moment of deeper understanding, wasn't it?
It was. That's a great way to express this. It really was. And it was, for me, the moment I knew with 100% certainty, I guess as much as anything we can know with 100% certainty, that I was never turning back, and that it wasn't an option, that I was on a mission, that this was my work in the world, and that my dad's work was different, my work was different. And it was such a powerful shift. And you're right, it's an energetic shift. I started showing up differently. From that day forward, I understood that me showing up was me being a role model and a leader in this space. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And ultimately, just hung my virtual shingle probably about 6 months after, not even. No. I hung my virtual shingle, I think 2 months after that moment, sitting by the pool. And just, again, one tiny step at a time. And because I was living into that truth of recognizing that I wanted to help liberate others' souls. And that's the work I have been doing for myself. And I know that liberating your soul, becoming chief soul officer of your own life, which is in essence getting clear on your truth and living into it, giving yourself that permission and nourishing and nurturing your soul. I suddenly understood. I was like, oh, what if we had a world full of chief soul officers? That's what I want to do.
Well, I'm raising my hand. I'm one.
Yeah. And from that moment forward, I was showing up in that way. And then, I became a coach and started speaking more. Ultimately, I was approached by a brand new imprint within Simon Schuster called Tiller Press. And they said, we know your story and what you are doing is so powerful. We want you to write your story. So I was showing up so powerfully, I actually attracted a book deal, which still blows my mind.
And that's extraordinary, especially in these days. But you know what it feels like? It's, as you were sharing the story, it's like that moment that you said you knew with certainty. I felt like embody is the word. Like you embodied your mission.
Yeah.
So you felt it all the way through you. It's like all of a sudden it was a clear alignment.
100% clear alignment, completely embodying it. And you're right, in a way, maybe I had been up to that moment, I think I'd been it was starting to clarify, but I hadn't been, owning it, feeling it in my body from a cellular level. And as soon as I did, people saw that bright light. As soon as I did, it was like, you couldn't dim my light. And that's the work I've been doing ever since. And honestly, writing the book, what was so powerful about that was it was a healing journey. I needed a lot more healing for many of the things. I committed to writing the book in a very raw and vulnerable way. I wanted everybody to see and understand that it's not always, that I was a hot mess on the inside, right? And I was feeling empty. And what did that look like? And what, things did I do in my life? So this is a wild ride. For those of you who are going to pick up the book, it's a roller coaster. And I wanted it to be that way because that's how we connect as humans. I wanted everybody to see my humanity. And I wrote the book that I wish I had had the day I stepped out of Harley. Because I didn't have any role models. I didn't know of people who had gone on a journey like this before. I found more of those people in my tribe now, but I didn't know those people and I didn't know where they were. And so I wrote the book where, I say at the beginning of the book, I'm putting my arm around you and saying, I got you. we're on this journey together. That's the book I wrote. And I call it part memoir, part manifesto, and part interactive guide, because yes, it's my story. And I want all of us to do this together, which is kind of the manifesto and movement piece. And it's an interactive guide because I also have soul search reflection sections at the end of each section of the book. So you can hold up the mirror to yourself and mine your own story and ask some of these profound questions and start the journey of digging deeper and excavating your truth.
I love it because in the title is the word guide, and everything you just described, that's what it feels like to me, a guide back to yourself.
Yeah. And I've received a lot of compliments on the fact that it is a guide in one sense, but it's really a guide in the sense that it's beacons and it's helping you to go on your own journey. What I didn't want to do is say, here's a blueprint for Soulbatical, because I don't think yours, mine, or anybody else's are intended to look the same, because then we wouldn't be living in our truth. And so the beauty of it is I kind of said, well, here's what I did. Here are the things I want you to ask yourself. And then here are some initial thought starters. Now start creating what feels right to you.
Well, I am so excited, and I want all our listeners, as we come to a close of our conversation, you have got to grab a copy of this book. Allow Shelley's journey to inspire you to become the chief soul officer of your life. And you can find her book, Soulbatical, A Corporate Rebel's Guide to Finding Your Best Life, at Soulbatical.com. Once you get there, be sure to check out everything else she's offering and follow her on social media also. Shelley, I got to tell you, I could do this for another 2 hours. I enjoyed our connection, this conversation. I'm so thrilled to be sharing your wisdom in an upcoming issue of Aspire magazine, and I'm honored that you were able to join me today.
I'm so flattered that you invited me, and this has been very nourishing for my soul. So thank you for that. And by the way, the book is available anywhere that you buy your books. So you can get it on my website or anywhere else.
Well, thank you for clarifying that too. And until next time, everyone, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness, my friends. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.